Welcome back to Shadow of the Colossus. We have a very peculiar Colossus today. It's definitely one of the weirder ones in terms of context of the game.
So when you said that the character becomes more corrupt looking over time, has that started at this point? Because I feel like his skin tone's slightly
Yeah, he gets a
more.
bit paler. He gets markings on his face if you bother to look at it.
Okay, because the game that reminds me of the most, and this might be something that game stole from this because it was made later. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, where the farther into the game you go, the more like blue phazon veins you see on Samus and stuff. It's a neat visual idea to kind of show what it's doing to the character, and I can't think of too many other games that do that.
Prime 3 is not as obvious though.
Well,
like
I mean,
I
you
think you
see
only
it.
see it in the reflection of the visors every once in a while.
Yeah, but it's still unsettling when you do see it.
Yeah.
When I think visual corruption, I usually think about games that have like a good and evil morality system, like Infamous or Knights of the Old Republic or Mass Effect 2.
Fable.
Huh?
Fable.
Fable, yeah. Well, Fable also just does visual changes based on what your skills are, too. I mean, it'll change your appearance based... Fable 2 actually has an interesting system where there are two morality sliders, one for good and evil, one for corruption versus purity, which is more about health than about... which is more about, like... vices than about good and evil.
So you can be a good person and corrupt at the same.
You
That's
can
actually-
you can be a slobbish good person, or you can be a pure evil bitch. The purity versus corruption meter makes you look uglier versus smoother. So you can be all evil and demonic, but you can also have really smooth looking skin.
But he makes a bitching turkey.
Basically, be an evil vegan, and that's what you'll get. But your appearance also changes. Your appearance also changes based on what skill trees you've leveled up more in. Like you get taller as you gain more skill. You get glowier as you gain more magic, and you get beefier as you gain more strength. Which is why I never go past a certain point in strength or magic. You start to look like Azul the fucking Cerulean by the end of the game. But yeah.
Well, is there any game off the top of your head that kind of plays with light can be just as corrupting as
Shin
dark?
Megami Tensei.
Okay, well, I never
well,
played that. That's why.
not
God and the devil are just as evil as each other.
Not necessarily in a visual sense, though. You don't.
Well, I
your
mean, they do
appearance won't
like
change.
the angels, by all accounts, like they still have light and they still have the big wings and they still, they talk kind of the way you would expect. They're just massive assholes. Although
Yeah.
to be fair, some of the angel designs are pretty creepy. Like some of them are just straight up robots.
But in terms of how your player character changes, I don't think that's ever been done in that way.
Not the player character, but in Shin Megami
Yeah.
Tensei 4, this is a spoiler for.
Oh
that
yeah,
game.
I know. That thematically, as a narrative thing, it's been done by Shin Megami Tensei all the time. But
In the other characters will change though, because usually in Shin Megami Tensei you'll have characters that used to be allies become enemies, and depending on what side they go for, they'll look more demonic or angelic depending on the situation. That's happened.
I just had a flashback to Robin Hood Men in Tights. You trying to jump from the horse from a high distance. Just imagine your horse saying, "He's got to be kidding me."
I have not seen that movie. That's a Mel Brooks movie, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
that would be a cruel thing to do to a horse, though. Just saying.
Yes.
Care for your horses, people.
I don't think
wow.
Men in Tights is one of Mel Brooks' best, Ted, but I still love the film.
Are we going to recruit an army of ghosts to attack the pirate ships with? Is that what
No.
this crevice is leading us to? Oh.
Think realistic, Lewis. Come on.
Oh.
Oh, it's here so that it can load the rest of Hyrule while we're walking around. Okay.
You mean the rest of Nosgoth, right?
Well, I mean, again, I've just played Twilight Princess at the time of this recording,
it's
and there's a
the
lot of
same-
long corridors here.
Yeah. It's the
open
same
parts of
principle.
Hyrule.
It's the same principle. Soul Reaver did the same thing, where there was a long hallway separating each area, usually with a door, so that it would force you to stop and do a door animation to give the next area more time to load. That was like earliest examples. That was one of the earliest examples of developers trying to create seamless worlds, which was a thing that would persist through the PlayStation 2 era. And nowadays, it's just kind of we don't really care about that anymore, do we? Load times ahoy, baby.
It's one of those things where I wish that I didn't know that a lot of these tricks were to mask load times because for example, one of the games I play a lot is the original Pikmin, and at the beginning of every day it'll say the area you're about to be in, and it'll stay there for a few seconds. That's the game loading, and I didn't know that. I was just like, oh, okay, this is where I'm going.
Yeah,
and I never thought about it, and it's just like now I'm thinking, okay, load faster when I was just. I was peaceful ignorance.
That's not really
the innocent days of our youth.
That's not really unique to Pikmin. Shenmue does the same thing, and it's somewhat vexing in the HD version because like the load times are basically non-existent. But that also means you have like no time to read the name of the location or the time of day it happens to be during the load screen. That's a little annoying. I wish they would have just like added a couple seconds to that so that I could look at the clock. What the?
Oh.
There's a lizard at each of these shrines. I cut out me trying to hunt it.
Okay,
Because
there's a dead whitetail here.
Because it's here, so
you could have slipped in a crossfade transition or something. It just looked like the game skipped. Okay.
You do instant transmission. You kill a whitetail. Stop doing that.
What?
I thought I could climb that.
Is this one of the magical programmed rocks that I can climb, or no? No, it's not.
Oh well, our big green
Man,
didn't appear
you know
over
that
us.
Aloy chick has it so easy. Like all the rocks she can climb are clearly marked. Jesus.
Or that Link fellow who could just climb on whatever the hell he wants unless it's raining.
In fact, I think a conceptual name for Breath of the Wild is "Can I climb this?"
The answer is yes.
Yes.
So did Onuma and Miyamoto just go rock climbing and then be like, "Wow, this would be a fun game"?
Ooh, my arms hurt.
I still okay, the series got really repetitive to the point of pure burnout after a while, but the Assassin's Creed series is still really admirable for its ability to actually have your character realistically climb shit. I mean, the stuff he's climbing might be a little convenient, but it actually looks like climbing.
Still can't be any worse than Amazing Spider-Man's construction cranes everywhere.
That you're talking about the movie or the Amazing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You see, I'm so on and off with that movie. I like some things about it. I don't like some other things. That crane scene is really dumb. Because the problem is that they're like, oh, the buildings are too far apart for him to web, and it's like, no, they're
not.
What are you talking about?
Have you been to New York?
It's like, you're Spider-Man, dude. It's like, when has that stopped you? Ever.
They could
also, have you been to New York? The buildings are fucking tightly compacted.
They could just take a page from the video games books and teach movie Spider-Man how to web zip. Yeah. That is actually a clever solution. It's especially interesting in the new Spider-Man game because in the new Spider-Man game you won't just web if there's nothing above you. There needs to be a building within webbing range, otherwise you won't shoot your web at anything. But you can get around that by using the web zip mechanic. Spider-Man 2 did that, yeah. I think the Spider-Man games in between sort of ignored it because it was slightly inconvenient.
You could, on a lot of them you could just web the sky.
Yeah.
Obviously, PS1 Spider-Man did that because of limitations on just how the game had to work.
Yeah.
I need to go and I need to get the PS4 Spider-Man at some point. I'm really just waiting for it to drop.
Now's a decent time to get into it. They're releasing the first DLC this week, I think.
I thought it was like around Halloween that they released.
Yeah, the Black Cat one just came out.
Oh, the Black Cat one came out around. Well, they're releasing the second DLC then.
You know what? Actually, I should probably just wait because they'll make a freaking Game of the Year version with all the DLC anyway.
Probably, yes.
Probably. Yeah. It's a damn good game, though. A few wrinkles here and there in the design, but damn good game. Man, what were these? What was the function of this shit? Like, what?
To exist.
Was there a city here? Or was the spiral goddamn ramp? Was the spiral goddamn wheelchair ramp tower leading somewhere specific?
Maybe
God.
they're just trying to be handicap accessible. I don't know.
Oh God.
We have a water one.
Oh God.
Oh, it's an electric eel. Jeez.
This This could
This
be
is one of-
problematic.
This is also one of those ones where if, like, you can excuse a lot of, oh, why can't it reach up? Well, it can't. Its arms are too heavy, and it's all the crap on its shoulders and stuff. This is one of those. If it just stayed underwater, Wanderer would have no chance.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a mammal and it needs to breathe. Although to be
it's a giant dolphin eel.
okay,
Okay.
but to be
It's a giant rock monster.
to be fair there, most aquatic mammals can hold their breath for like at least 15 minutes at a time. Some for hours. Like certain species of whale can hold their breath for hours underwater. So yeah, never mind. That's not a great.
Wanderer would still be screwed.
Yeah, basically, because he'd get one chance every like 3 hours, and then he'd be like, "Oh, well, shit. Maybe I could just find a different girlfriend." Now that I'm thinking about it.
Let me see what's going on in the Team Ico app.
Yeah. I shoot you with arrows. Splat.
The velocity of those arrows would be cut in half easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shooting an arrow into the water. Like I wonder if it's possible to shoot an arrow underwater, or if so.
Well, you can. It probably just wouldn't go very far.
Yeah, how you would need to change it in order for it to get the velocity to actually be useful. You know.
It's coming. Yeah, when its eyes turn
It would
orange, that
slow
means it can
down
see
a
you.
hell of a lot too fast to be any sort of useful range.
You're better off just trying to stab with the arrow physically.
Yeah. Which you can do in D&D, so.
Yeah, it just uses dagger.
Doesn't
Right, yeah.
Legolas actually stab with his arrow at one point before firing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
mean,
think he does.
He
it
stabs an
equal
orc in the
times.
he stabs an orc in the throat.
It's remarkable that he has such faith in his arrow's durability that he stabs an orc in the throat and then immediately pulls it out and fires the arrow into another orc without considering the possibility that maybe the arrowhead might break off. Which would have been
Magic.
embarrassing because it would have resulted in him firing a stick into the enemy's eye.
Yeah, but knowing Legolas, it would've
Knowing
killed it
Legolas,
anyway.
it would have speared his brain anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like the point of the stick is still
Would be
sharp.
so sharp.
Do
yeah.
they in
Yeah.
the books? Do they ever address how Legolas has so many goddamn arrows? Because I don't think they
Yeah.
ever have him run out in the.
No, he never runs out in the movies.
It's well, they don't really pay much attention to Legolas in the book. Really, they don't really pay much attention to the action in the book. Really, it's a surprising.
It all just kind of happens, yeah.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly non-violent book, considering most of it is a war. It's strange. It's hard to explain. You'd have to read it to.
Yeah, basically it's never described that Legolas is firing arrows all willy-nilly all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay, you see, I just have very little desire to go and read Lord of the Rings, is the thing. I know that it's a super important book, and, you know, for the sake of understanding a lot of fantasy literature, I should. But I don't know, something about it I just don't really have the
Patience
desire.
for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
also, it's long is the thing. Like, I don't want to read Game of Thrones for the same reason, because I don't want to be reading the same thing
Well-
for like 6 months.
Well, Game of Thrones is a different case because the way it's written, it changes up in so many interesting ways from perspective to perspective, and there are so many perspectives that it doesn't necessarily feel long, even though the book is fucking cinder block. Lord of the Rings is something that I'd say you have to be in a certain kind of languid sort of mood for, but it's very relaxing to read when you can get into it. The thing is, though, that the Lord of the Rings movies took a hell of a lot of influence, ironically, from Dungeons and Dragons. So, it kind of feels at times more like a Dungeons and Dragons movie than a Lord of the Rings movie, which is funny to think about because New Line Cinema actually did the Dungeons and Dragons movie, and it was
With Jeremy Irons.
Yeah, it was a horrible and fabulous train wreck.
Yeah, I thought it was a strange part of the movie when Sauron rolls in that one.
I look for the ring, you roll the nat 1, even though it's right in front of your fucking face.
The ring falls off a cliff and you can't find it ever again.
Do you guys know about the Dungeons and Dragons movie? Well, I think I
Yes.
know.
I've seen
Ryan
the old
knows it.
Nostalgia Critic review.
But
But
the one with Jeremy Irons.
yeah.
Okay.
That's the one. Yeah, the New Line released that like right before the Lord of the Rings. It's the funniest thing ever. And it's like, here's a really bad Dungeons and Dragons movie. Here's a really good Dungeons and Dragons movie called Lord of the Rings. Man. Okay, waiting for the electric eel to surface is kind of a drag, not gonna lie.
How does the
Yeah.
game do breathing when you're underwater?
It's basically just same as your grip, really.
Okay.
Because if you're in the water trying to stay on him, you have to be holding on to him, or the water will just float you up.
All right.
Because the Wanderer doesn't know how to swim. He just knows how to tread water.
Yeah, because you can't. I'm guessing
Awkwardly.
you can't dive.
I can't.
at all.
I can't let. Well, you can a little bit, but nowhere near enough to actually do anything with this guy. So.
Well, yeah, because if you're trying to dive several feet underwater is really hard, and the water pressure gets to you pretty quickly. Like even if you're just going swimming in a normal swimming pool, and you try to dive to the bottom of the deep end, you start to feel that water pressure. And this thing's probably several dozen feet below the surface at many points. So
Well, that's why you got to invest in silver scales.
I hated that. I hate the diving in Ocarina of Time. It's so awkward.
At the same time,
Gross.
one of the things that I do genuinely like about classic Tomb Raider is the swimming. It basically had the same kind of swimming that you saw in Super Mario 64, only, well, a hell of a lot more interesting and refined.
And dangerous, if we're being honest.
Well, yeah, but everything kills you in no time flat classic Tomb
So
Raider.
my least favorite experiences of the second Tomb Raider is when I think you escape from that submarine and you're like underwater from the start of the level, and you have to find a safe haven in a limited amount of time while sharks are swimming around the area.
I'll admit that I never actually got that far in Tomb Raider 2. Most of my experience with what I would call classic Tomb Raider comes from Anniversary Legend, Tomb Raider 1, and Underworld. Underworld coincidentally starts with a scuba diving segment, so you get really familiar with the swimming mechanics in that game. It's actually a surprisingly effective opening. You start with a scuba diving segment, and you find an underwater tomb, and you explore that.
Sean's getting flashbacks to Echo already.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What were you saying? Something about Echo?
Yes.
Are you talking specifically the Dreamcast game? Because that is...
Well, the electric eel thing is down. Yay.
So, does the water slow down the black smoke stuff?
No.
Does it just come up in...
You
one-
can't escape it anyway, so what's the point?
Does it come up in, like, one massive fart bubble of dark magic?
Yeah, look at the bubbling water. It's like, okay, I'm not going to go there.
All right, who was it? Come clean. All right.
The Dark God? Man, silent but deadly.
Come on.
I love
there it
Wanderer's.
is.
I love Wanderer's swimming animation when he's just swimming in place. He's just sort of alternatively flailing his arms up and down, which is not how you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to sort of.
I don't swim, basically, but I don't understand exactly how treading water works.
You're it's more that you're moving so that you don't sink. That's the best way I can describe it. I haven't been swimming in years. I used to do it all the time, but
It's,
you're basically just moving your arms to keep yourself up at the top of the water. You're also
Yeah.
kicking your legs too to kind of propel yourself up. But the most important thing is that if you're not moving, you're not. If you're not moving, you're going to sink, and if you're moving, you
It's
won't sink.
It's a little dangerous. No, not dangerous. It's a little difficult to describe because a lot of it comes from that sort of feel of balance that you get from practice. It's like riding a bike. You practice until you learn, and then you have a feel for it, and you don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah,
never forget it.
while I was describing it, you can't see this, but sometimes I wish we had face cams because I was like doing arm motions, like trying to remind myself what I do when I tread water.
Yeah.
Hey guys, count the blinks.